This is TVA by Gemma, a podcast about real human issues brought to you by Dark Crazy Dark
She gets the stuff because there's stuff that I think is scary and Insidious.
No, I think Insidious is terrifying, but Insidious is the kind of terrifying for me, which is it's all fake. I'm not thinking it's fake, but they have visuals in there that are like disturbingly arresting. Like that's great. It's like beautiful. Insidious is one of the ones like they're amazing. I'll watch it again. So well done. But there's visuals that like stick in your head. I'm like, oh, that's a great shot. Like, you know, that's the stuff that would scare her. Just a visual that would she'd have nightmares.
I remember being really scared. My brother was watching Drop Dead Fred. I was very young. And I remember telling my mum that it was too scary for me. And she didn't even know they were watching it because she was in the other part of the house and came in and made them turn it off. And I got told off by my brother's friend for being such a wuss about it. And I still can't sleep on my back because I was so young. I was afraid of that hand coming out and slapping you in the foot. And that terrified me. So I started sleeping on my side.
The only thing Alex has ever, she's only had nightmares about that. And I had to like back down from, it was from the audio. It was from that bedtime stories. We were listening to the podcast version and it was like the Wendigo one, which is not even scary. It's not even a scary, but that guy, just the way he does stuff and it's the tone. She had nightmares about this Wendigo thing crawling in her room. I was like, okay, we have to dial those back a little bit. Maybe listen to that all the time in the car is not a good idea.
Yeah. Well, those can be some pretty spooky stories too. It just depends on what kids find scary. When I was a kid, any kind of scary movie I thought was scary.
Yeah.
Like I remember Salem's Lot being on TV and just being terrified of it.
Depends on what you're exposed to.
I was scared of aliens and little people. When I was like anything with little people freaked me out.
Yeah,
like, I don't know why.
I still am kind of that way. I'm not sure what movie I caught a glimpse of that I was like, a tiny man coming out of the cabinet. That's what I don't want to see.
Like, I think it's that.
What were you exposed to?
I think no, there is something that I think is in that. Is it in Fried Green Tomatoes? It's a movie like that where there's like a little person in it that kind of goes crazy and like attack, and it's like, oh no, I don't like this at all.
Yeah, it must have been something like one of those like Don't Be Afraid of the Dark or one of those kind of things I must have seen.
Yeah, the idea of Chucky when I was a kid terrified the shit out of me. Like just thinking about it, like, I'm not going to watch that. And now it's like ridiculous.
The cover of one of those Gremlins clones that had that thing coming out of the toilet.
Yeah, it was a good.
Oh, yeah.
And I never even saw the movie, and just that thing coming out of the toilet terrified me about the toilet. And my cousins found out, and they told me all these creepy stories about things coming out of the toilet and getting you.
To be fair, every time I hear a story about something coming out of the toilet, it happens in Australia. It's like it's always.
I mean, this is true.
And usually the same man that happens too.
It's so funny because the reference.
He cleans toilet.
When you guys and Brooks and always talked about horror movies, and I'd be like, because you guys are watching those when you're teenagers, and I'm just like a little bit behind you, like. I was like in elementary school, so I'll be like, I just remember everyone you mentioned. I'll remember the cover. I can tell you what the cover looked like because you looked at all of them. That's what you used to do. You're like, that looks scary. I don't know. It's like
it all looks scary, yeah.
And it's just like, that relationship. That's something that I saw that on another TikTok. Some guy during the quarantine made like his man cave, but he made it into like a video store.
Oh,
like from the 80s. Yeah,
that was really
awesome.
Cool. I wish I had a basement to do something like that with. I don't have that kind of space because I have that many movies. Like I don't have 20 copies of Forrest Gump, but
that's one of my biggest old man things in the world. Like other stuff, like who cares? Phones, internet. It's video stores, man. Like that. It was such a social thing, especially when you're friends later on, just to walk around. Because my dad's a big thing. We used to go there every weekend. We'd walk around, selection for like 20 minutes, and you look, and it's like just based on a cover and like a paragraph. You're like, all right, maybe this looks good. I don't know.
Yeah, and you get the ones that had a painted cover and no photo on the back. And you're like, this is probably garbage.
You didn't have to look at IMDb or like, how many stars does this thing have? Because you're like,
you didn't get any indication at all. Yeah, that was the only advertising in the store looking at it.
And you kind of had to watch it because that was your only choice for the weekend.
The lock-in,
you had it for the weekend.
Yeah, you weren't going to turn it off and not watch the rest of it. Like that was all you had. Yeah,
that's what you have. So you watch it.
Friday night at 10 o'clock. You're like, watch the news right now? No, I'll just watch the rest of this movie, I guess.
We'll power through this thing.
And especially as a kid, because again, this you see moral manty. They have so many things on Netflix. Just all you could buy as your kid is Netflix kids thing, and they would have a million things they could never watch. There's so much content up there. That's why when I was a kid, you'd rent a movie and you'd watch it like 30 times. I'd start it again, start it again.
Yeah, that's weird. I wonder if kids will be less likely.
She does that
to
now.
get, super into certain movies, like we were, because they have so much choice.
She actually does do that. I actually kind of push her sometimes. Like, well, there's a lot more stuff. She'll watch a series. Like, she watched that Lemony Snicket's like 3 times now. That whole Netflix series.
I still do that as an adult. I think it's a comfort thing.
Yeah,
I definitely do that. I definitely do that when I'm wanting to go to sleep. I want to put on a movie that I know, and then that's comforting. Or if I'm just tired and kind of vegging out,
I've ended up doing that.
Find a movie that I like.
I've ended up doing that with Marvel movies where I'm like, well, especially Disney Plus there. I'm like, let me look at the beginning of that. And I was like, oh, it's been 2 hours. I just watched Iron Man 2 again. Like, what did I've watched Civil War like 30 times, I bet, since Disney Plus, just because like, I'm going to watch this again.
Yeah. Well, my go-to is Guardians of the Galaxy when I'm in a mood. And I just need to dance it out. Guardians of the Galaxy in that first scene, you just dancing. It's like, yep, everything's going to be okay.
Those shows sort of do it because we watch WandaVision and we're like, well, I'm going to watch Age of Ultron because there's so much they call back in WandaVision. Then we watch Age of Ultron and Megan's like, let's watch Ragnarok. I like Ragnarok. Like, okay, like you spend all day just watching Marvel movies.
I think it's good for them in general because I told you my sister and her partner, they're like, her partner's more into like nerdy stuff like that, but they had seen some of those movies, like they'd seen Captain Marvel and those ones, but like, they watched that. It's like, she texted me, she said, we're watching Age of Ultron because of, or no, she didn't say that. She said, we're watching Infinity War because we want to see about Wanda. I was like, whoa, hold on. It's like, which ones have you watched Age of Ultron? She's like, no. I was like, hold on, here's the list. You need to, and that wasn't even a list of like, I would just recommend people if they like it, just go back and watch them all because even after all that, they watched. I was like, you need to watch that. You need to watch then Civil War to have some kind of understanding of where they are. Then you can watch Infinity War, then Endgame. That's like a very limited Avengers list. And I was like, but then I went over there a couple of weeks ago for the first time seeing them in a year. And I was like, hey, so what do you? She's like, yeah, we loved Endgame. It was very much. I was like, have you even seen Ragnarok? And she's like, she's of the 80s more. She was born in 76. She's my older sister. And she's like, no. I was like, oh my God, that's like my favorite one. That's like, you ain't even seen.
Yeah.
So I think it helps people go back. Yeah, like definitely.
Yeah, the TV shows
these days, though. I can understand people just being like, "Oh, there's so many Marvel movies," which I don't even get what order to watch them in or whatever. There's too many of them.
Especially, if somehow you came to the party late, you're like, "What am I even supposed to?" It's like, I don't know. You're a passive viewer. Just watch them in any order. Who cares? Like, are you really going to care that much?
Who said was it Brooks that said he was going to watch them in chronological because he hadn't seen them all and he was catching up with them in somebody. I think it was Brooks because one of the Disney
starting with the oldest one or starting with
like
the
Captain
one that
America
was first. Captain America.
Because it's like and then you have to go to Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel, right? Yeah,
if it's 90s. In story chronology, but that doesn't make any sense though because the story, it's the order they're released is how you should because it's people will say, wow, they had all this planned out. They don't you have to get the context through seeing the order the movies came out in because they'll go back and subtly sort of retweak and retcon things here and there.
That's why I love.
I mean, you're going to include the Hulk movies in that?
Yeah, I guess like
Incredible Hulk. You would, I guess, if you want to see the whole MCU. That's the one I forget. Like I sometimes think back in the early days. Pre-Avengers, like what all came out? I'm like, I know there was another one. It's like,
well, technically, it came out after Iron Man, though. So it's
because it was and it had Tony Stark in it. It was an MCU movie. It's just so easy to forget because so few elements from that movie have carried on. Like if they didn't have Thunderbolt Ross in the movies now, there wouldn't be one thing that we've seen in the other movies.
Right, but it was sort of different. The reason why you can say the formula didn't work in that one because it was still half Universal, even though it was a Marvel Studios. Like they had an agreement with Universal, so I don't know if they were totally in charge of. And
that wasn't like it wasn't under their thing of what they were making, and they had the actor who is in charge of the script a lot of the time. That guy,
Edward Norton, yeah.
which is why he wouldn't have worked in the larger continuity, because he likes to write his own scripts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. People make fun of that. It's like, just get over yourself and make just a fun movie. These guys are like, well, they're like suffocating artists. It's like they're supposed to be.
Yeah, but it's a superhero movie.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want to do, man? It's like make Batman. That's what happens.
Like they're spending $200 million on this movie. You're not going to be the sole auteur of it.
Make your own movies on your own time.
Yeah, spend your $200 million on a movie and then make it any way you want.
That's why with all that Justice League stuff, we talked about that Joss Whedon version, and people were like, I mean, criticisms for him personally are valid, but for when they're like, it's all that stuff, it's like, man, do you think they could have just had anybody? That most of this stuff is probably studio stuff. They're saying that, like most of those limitations, those huge decisions.
If you read the
crappy
stuff,
jokes maybe aside, but like 2 hours and like cutting things, you're like, yeah, that's probably
someone falling on Wonder Woman was all Joss Whedon.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of those creative flourishes are definitely his, but if you read some of the behind the scenes stuff that was going on, you can see that he just kind of came in with well, this is what they're telling me we want to do, and this is what we're going to do because we're going to finish the movie, and then that's that. And none of them were having it.
Right.
Did you read the most recent comments by Cyborg?
Yeah, I read
about the behaviors.
A couple different stories about
like
and booyah.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
It was more just like him being a dick about it than anything else. Like the way they went about telling him to do stuff. Like he did the booyah. He came in and did it, but Joss didn't have to tease him and act all big man while he was doing it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's impossible to tell for sure what a person is really like, but it seems like from these accounts, it's like if Joss Whedon is the kind of control freak that if he has his world and he controls it and he's in charge and he's a mostly decent, like he's had lots of people he worked with that had no problem with him.
Yeah, it seems like
if there's ever any element where he's not in complete control, then that's where he can become a monster.
Well, I heard two very contradictory things. Like apparently he said I should remember his name, the guy playing Cyborg, I don't take notes from anybody, not even Robert Downey Jr. And then I heard a different story where, while they were doing Avengers, Robert Downey Jr. stopped the scene and said, Joss has to go rewrite this because it's not working.
Yeah, that's what I always wonder with the thing. Again, because the two casts that seem to love him are the Firefly cast and those Avengers movies. The two things that I think are his best stuff. So I wonder, it's like, is he just in a weird headspace? Because I watched a thing recently after we even talked about it. It was like some interview in New York, but it was with him and Mark Ruffalo. But Mark Ruffalo was like interviewing him. It's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And Mark Ruffalo like loves this is after Ultron. So I was like, well, maybe in Ultron he kind of got, because he really went all, he didn't even promote Ultron the same way with Justice League. Like he got all like pissy about it. So I was like, well, maybe after that one they got soured. And I was like, Mark Ruffalo loves him. I was like, the way he was talking about him, I was like, so apparently he's like, I mean, like in the right situation. I mean, he's just not a stable guy emotionally, obviously.
Just like anybody, if you get them in the right situation, they're going to be charming. Like,
so that's what's interesting.
There are people who, if they're getting their way, are perfectly easy to deal with, and if they're not getting their way, then they're not at all easy to deal with.
What is it like if
people that have clashed them at all have terrible experiences, and those people that were completely on board with what they were doing had good experience.
And I mean, Firefly went for like 8 episodes. He didn't have time. He was doing his thing, and he didn't really have time for any clashes and stuff. So
besides his personal life, anyway, I said that back then. It's like if Firefly had gone on long enough, we would have been sad that it did.
Yeah,
it's sort of a perfect.
Well, that came out. I saw that in a story, like how Nara was going to be sexually assaulted, and so I was like, okay. It's like Sean's right. Sean's right about this. It's like that's why I never balk against. Like, this is a nice little gem of a thing that we have here, and it's enjoyable. You can watch it and be done. And the movie, I think, is great. So you watch it and be done with it. You're like, okay.
Yeah, but the movie is the start of you realizing, oh, these were the ideas he just couldn't wait to use.
Right.
Like, so this was gonna go south pretty fast.
Right. So I think it's fine. They don't have to touch again. I don't know if he'll ever do stuff again. I guess he has an HBO show coming out, right? The Nevers or whatever the thing is.
The Nevers, which apparently is really good from all accounts. And a lot
cool.
of people on set were like, we didn't have any trouble with him again. So, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's still in my head. Like, I won't defend him, and I'm not saying I'm going to be best friends with him. But as far as past work, I feel like he's just into like the major asshole territory. Like, we'll see. I don't know if things have gone on. I don't know. I'm also against like, I don't know. To me, those things exist, and like, yeah, I don't think people. It's all for people not hiring them and stuff. I agree with that. If they don't want to hire them because of that, that's cool. I don't also think
that's
like
not what you want.
What?
If that's not what you want, like you look at anybody and you look at their behavior and you think, will this mesh with what I'm making and with this group of people that I'm doing? It's like any other employment situation.
To me, with other stuff though, like if people are like, well, Buffy's bad, and I was like, well, I think you shouldn't be denounce stuff you like. It's harder with stand-up comedians. Like it's a lot harder, like things like Bill Cosby and stuff. There might be in a different realm too.
Well, when it's so a single performer, their whole brand is them and their attitude and their personality. So it is harder with a comedian.
You
like separating out J.K. Rowling with the Harry Potter movie.
Yeah,
like you can be mad at her and the books because of the way she's dealt with a lot of issues, but those movies were made with a lot of other people and a lot of other love and care.
And if you didn't know that backstory, you wouldn't know. It's only problematic when you go, wait a second, hold on. There's
you can look at a couple of things in those books nowadays and go,
it retroactively informs you sometimes when you're like, oh, like I might have given the benefit of the doubt, but now I'm worried about that.
But fairly enough, that can happen.
Then a lot of stuff in the 90s.
That happens with any content that's 20 years old too. That like it'll start happening anyway. So I'm like, well.
It's kind of the Game of Thrones thing. It's like Game of Thrones ended and people were like, we didn't really like the way it seemed like they really turned on their female characters and all this. Like, well, but to be fair, George R. R. Martin is terrible when it comes to female characters. And that wasn't a secret. Like, those guys actually helped in terms of how they fleshed out female characters throughout the show.
And they actually sort of responded to that sexposition stuff after a while and stopped doing it. I'm not disagreeing with those criticisms, but it's weird that you noticed only at the very end. Right. It's funny you bring that up. One thing I watched, I don't know why I got in these interviews, but I watched that. I guess it's on the box set of Game of Thrones, but it's that Conan O'Brien went over there when they wrapped, like the week of like right when they were ending the show.
Okay.
When they wrapped the production, so there's like 3 years or whenever it was, and he did like this kind of event, like around like a big interview, like a reunion thing, and talking to different people. And, like Sean Bean came in and stuff, like he flew in, and Jason Momoa was there and stuff too. And they're all like drinking and stuff. Like it feels like a Golden Globes thing because they're drinking. And then he brings up people, but then it made me so like kind of nostalgic. Like, man, I miss good Game of and it kind of made me want to go. You know what? I think I could watch the show again now. Even retconning, like I like where it went, but we don't like, the pace of it. But then you could go, what if you just watched it now? And then every little thing Daenerys does, like, she's going crazy. Like you could almost like headcanon your way into, whereas before we always like, well, she's going to be the hero. I'm interested to see, because before you're always like, well, she's the hero. So now if you did that and just had the kind of, the foreknowledge to go, maybe this is her being crazy. That's not what they intended. I know that, but this is me headcanoning. Like, maybe I can enjoy it more.
Well, I never thought it was such a weird turn for her character.
No, I think
when people were coming out going, they've destroyed her character. It's completely out of left field. It's nothing like what she'd ever do. And I was like, no, it looks like this was the end point of her character. They haven't done it right, but it does look like this would have been the end point of her character anyway.
They needed a couple more seasons, probably at least another season,
or at least a couple more episodes. They needed a full season. That instead of making big event-based episodes, you needed those, because the best episode of that season is the second episode where they're all just sitting around drinking.
It's wonderful.
That's the Last Jedi of Game of Thrones to me. I'm like, look, you can make a Rise of Skywalker, and I'm fine with it because Last Jedi works as the end of the Star Wars saga to me. That episode works as a finale to Game of Thrones for me. So it's like everything after that. Even if it was all downhill from there, it was still worth the trip for that episode. It wrapped things up really well.
It's like anything. A story is only happy or sad depending on where you end it.
Sure, and the end's always weird because in real life, nothing ends.
Oh, because
it's always disingenuous to end the story.
Well, in real life, ends are always awkward too. Like, like say you finish to go to, all right, bye, we'll see you guys later. Everything's always awkward. Like, so it's like, no matter what the choices are, it's never as good as like, imagine that. They're like, well, tomorrow we're going to go into battle. And then it's like the end. You're like, like, that's a cool story. That would stick with you. It'd be haunting. You're like,
well, they did that in
classic Game of Thrones.
Animals.
Yeah.
In Animorphs. I've gotten really into watching Animorphs deep dives on YouTube because Animorphs.
Oh, Animorphs. I just said animals. I don't know what animals. Yeah,
No, Animorphs.
That's how animals work.
Animals. No end to animals. No, and I've been watching a lot of deep dives on YouTube because I find the whole thing fascinating. And apparently that series ended on a whole, and there's another war coming. We haven't won this war. Like there's another whole battle coming, whatever. And people were really mad at the authors, and they were like, "Why'd you end on a cliffhanger like that? Or why'd you end on a it's not happily ever after?" And she was like, "Welcome to real life, baby."
Yeah,
because nothing ever
how
is.
it happens.
That's where Zack Snyder's Justice League. It actually, if this is all you ever do, that's a good place to leave
I think
it.
it's kind of
They're
neat.
like, oh, we pissed off Darkseid, and Darkseid's coming. It's like, you don't have to see that battle. Battles are boring. Like that episode of Game of Thrones where they're all like, and tomorrow we fight the army of the dead. Like that's classic Game of Thrones because they're not. Especially in the early days, they didn't really show the battles that much. They focused on the stuff that happened between the battles,
and that's why
that's the real drama,
right? And that's what, absolutely, and that's why that's when it was best. The first couple seasons, like season 3 too. Like there's first 3 seasons.
Not figuring out, it's fine.
Well, and then it's like it doesn't. That's why even the ending becomes illogical to what like we talked about this before. But it's like if you're gonna the whole time it's like look how crazy this game. The show's called Game of Thrones, and the moment she says I'm gonna break the wheel, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. You're like you have to, but they don't break the wheel. They don't like dissolve everything and make a council or anything. So then pretending that this is a happy ending is ridiculous.
Well, because you can't break the wheel. Like we're gonna break like her. I'm gonna break the wheel, and then I'm still gonna be queen. It's like, well, how does that? Well, if you break the wheel,
chair,
wouldn't we be rebuilding everything? It's like not
it's
my
very
part.
Anakin.
My part's off.
It's like it's very Anakin Skywalker. It's like, oh, we have to force everybody to just I should just be in charge so I can force everybody to do the right thing.
Yeah, and then they'll be happy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But they didn't even do a thing like, well, let's introduce democracy. That's even though that doesn't mean they're not going to have more. It could be like, well, that means they're maybe happier a little longer. But with this scenario, what's causing any lord to go, hey, I'm going to take over now from this weird kid? Nothing. Yeah. That's like nothing. Yeah. It's like.
Well, didn't George Martin say that the ending was just like a graveyard?
Maybe.
Like the story's not even really over until everyone's just dead.
I didn't realize it's been 9 years now since the last book. I was like, whoa, dude. It's like, after you pass 5 years, I stopped having like, I mean, he can do whatever he wants to, but I stopped defending you at that point. Like, man, that's a long time.
Yeah, I'm on board with him now. I know his racket now. What's the benefit in finishing him? Like, people like you, I hope you finish your books before you die. He's like, whatever, fuck you. And that's true. It's like, what's the benefit to me? Because then you guys have all the books, and then I end my revenue stream.
Remember how people love Game of Thrones until the end? It's like, yeah, maybe we just don't end
exactly.
If he brings out another book now, he gets nothing but judgment on it.
It literally took like 2 episodes at the end just to mess it all up. I mean, there were other issues with the last couple seasons.
But the book that he's working on isn't even the last book. He's a genius. I know. It's like, if this finally comes out, and they're like, now I just have at least 1 or 2 more books. You're like, oh my God. It's like,
he's like 80 years old.
What do you think they're going to do? Are they going to do the Wheel of Time thing if he dies?
What was that?
They could. I honestly, I don't know if it matters. Like,
he's 72 years old.
With the show over, I think the interest is going to start diminishing.
Well, they're going to have the Broadway show now.
So. Yeah, so there's that. That's why I think he's just messing with everyone. I got to take time away from this book so I can start writing this musical.
Working the book for this musical.
He's just fucking with us now.
Well, the weird thing about it, it's not a musical. If it's a music, it's like it's a serious play about.
Totally should be a musical with all the great songs and stuff they had in the show.
Supposedly it's supposed to be like Tournament of Roses.
Want to bring back Ed Sheeran? Is that what you want?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what
we think, Sean.
Yeah, well, they had Sigur Rós and stuff on the show too. They had real bands too.
Yeah,
they had a lot of good songs. I'd love to see a Game of Thrones musical. I'd at least buy the soundtrack. I'd sing the Game of Thrones song sometime in the shower.
Yeah, man, I watched that.
Castamere.
Yeah, I watched that. Well, I watched that song, the Podrick song. I love that song they have in that episode too. That last, the one we like. That's like, God,
that's all the good stuff. That's all the good stuff.
That is such a satisfying episode. I'm like, man.
Yeah, so people can say, I wanted them to throw out that last season. It's like, well, the whole last season.
Yeah, the first 2. Good stuff there. Second episode's amazing.
Yeah. And honestly, that battle afterwards is a fun battle. Like, you guys got mad, like, because it didn't end the way you wanted it to, but it was
it's logically. Episode. I mean, I don't know, for a show that it's lazy. That's the first time they just started getting lazy of things. They get more. That's like for a show that every battle up to that point, except for ones they skip, were about what's the logistics of this battle. So he's running here. Like you could read that one was like weird because like, hey, everybody just runs over there, then they disappeared, and it's just weird. It's just dumb. It's just I don't know. It's just
their biggest problem there was their arc should have been to fight the Army of the Dead as the penultimate season of the show, and then the final season should have been something else. Like should have been the last of their struggles together, because that's where people got confused.
Well, yeah,
everyone started to think that was going to be something that went on to the very end.
Well,
like I wanted to see that Army of the Dead march on to King's Landing. I never got to see that.
Yeah, you kind of wanted that. Yeah, true. Like, but you kind of want the
ending. That would have actually been cool if they had just taken the North, and then the last few survivors from the North get on the back of a dragon, whatever, and
then the sort of metaphor would have made more sense. But instead, they're like, "No, we did a thing with a magic thing, and now it's all fixed."
And you kind of want to see them come together, and you kind of had one of that Last Jedi moment where Kylo and her team up, and then she's like, "Well, cool, we're on the same team." He's like, all right, now come with me to rule. It's like, no, and that goes into the that could be the beginning and into the last season. It's about like that. I think that I don't think it's bad for a character. I think it's such a cool idea. Let's spend a whole season about them people fighting her now. Like actually opposing her. We get 2 episodes of it. We got 1 episode of it. That's it, right?
Well, it would have been. Imagine how nuanced it would have been if for a season we're hearing her side of it versus their side of it.
Right. Just like Cersei, like we get all the time. Yeah.
Just like we've had that through the rest of the show.
Yeah.
One of the more interesting things in the earlier seasons was all the court intrigue and Sansa learning how to be clever at court and that sort of thing. What if the last season had have been a bit of that? Like, what if they just rock up as refugees in King's Landing and Cersei's like, well, I'll allow you to stay here. Right. And then they've still got the court going. By the end, it's just Cersei and her alcohol running the court, and it's not interesting at all. Right. But if like Sansa rocks up again and takes over and you actually prove that she's grown and she's smart now, rather than just saying she's the smartest person around and then everything she says is wrong.
I kind of feel like the 2 big missed opportunities is either Sansa just taking over all or Tyrion. Isn't that the whole arc of this thing? Is that like he's worthy
Sansa
enough
and
to
Tyrion
lead?
At the end, like team up and outthink Cersei and outsmart Cersei.
And maybe they're just the 2 people in charge. Like they're the kind of dual thing, and that's would have been fun because it goes with their history. Both of them, they just kind of like, they're not.
Really and it could have worked really well with Daenerys losing control and going crazy because they're actually gaining control by being smart, and she's just like, but usually I just come in with my dragons.
Yeah,
and it's all
and people worship me.
And it also
she just cannot get around to it, and that would make it even more dramatic and unsettling when she takes that turn to fuck it, I'm just going to dragon everything, because they've already gained control, they're already in the good place that they need to be, and then she's just like, no, I need to be in charge.
And that's just the disadvantage of having rushed it the way
and you think also too, not to say that he should be like the hero, or like I like the idea of him not turning to it in the end maybe, but John's journey sort of should be like a Return of the King journey. He's like, he says he doesn't want that, once he knows about all this stuff, he's like kind of saying he doesn't think he should be leading people. You know what I mean? That's what he's.
I feel like they didn't want to leave John in charge because we expected John to be in charge, so they had to do something to.
Yeah, I get that. I get it in a way, but then they don't make him active enough. I mean, I guess he does kill her. And I don't even mind some of that stuff. Some of the stuff people make fun of. I even think the dragon blowing up the throne, it's kind of a cool moment. I actually like that. I thought it was neat.
I thought it was fun. And I like the way they end that character. I like him going off into
I like the way they end it, but I don't think he steps up enough as a leader before that in front of some of those people. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. In a way, I kind of appreciate, because you can see some of our expectations were based not on what we've seen from those characters. Like, it's pretty consistent of John that he didn't turn out to be like the great king, because that was never his. He is a good leader and a good person, but he never was that leader, that kind of ruler.
But maybe what I want is that if you had another season, maybe we can have conversations about that. You know what I mean? He can talk about what he wants or doesn't want.
If they hadn't rushed the pace, I think for sure they would have found a better way to arrive at something.
Like, let's have those fun conversations. Like,
it's not the end; it's how they got there that really rubbed people the wrong way. I mean, some people didn't like the end.
Well,
itself,
then they conflate the ending
whatever.
being bad. Well, a lot of people do that. And then they conflate everything that was in it as being bad. I was like, this wasn't bad. This just needed to happen 10 episodes in between this. You know,
you just didn't have enough defense for the way that ended.
That or John could have turned into the Night King. Wouldn't that have been cool?
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
That would have been
and it would have been kind of even interesting with Daenerys. That would have been cool. That would have been neat. And also,
like, what if he stabs the Night King and we're like expecting all of the whites to just die, and he's just like frosts over, and we're like, oh shit.
It would have been interesting if him and with Daenerys and Cersei, somehow Cersei's thing was just always unsatisfying because they just did nothing with her. Something happened there, but would have been interesting if I would have believed her killing all those people. What if they finally just took the city without killing anybody, you know? And then she's leading for a whole season, and then the people with that thing that everybody else has dealt with, like the real rule, which is everybody loves you, everybody hates you, everybody's complaining about you, they're rioting in the streets. If it gets to that point and she's like, it's like, I'm just gonna kill all these people. See, like that's an interesting that's a villain turn, which, you know, pure just killing innocent people is like too much. That's like Thanos doesn't even. That's like he had a reason. Like this, there's no reason for it to do that. Like he had an
escalation.
At least he has an ethos. So, I think I'm gonna watch it again though. I was like watching that show made me nostalgic. It's like, man, I missed those first. It was so good.
It's fun stuff. Yeah, I you know, it's still too soon for me to want to revisit but give it a few more years, and I could see going back. I kind of like to rewatch some Game of Thrones. That was a really good show.
Yeah, I just got in the mood because of that special, which was fun. It was fun to watch that. That's
fun. I liked that HBO documentary that they did about the final season, the making of.
Oh yeah,
that was a really good one. That kind of gets you back into the mood because they're all into it. Like they're not phoning it in. It's so funny when people say, "Well, they just weren't even trying in that final season." It's like, no, they overextended themselves.
No, that's not true.
Like, but like, we got 10,000 guys in a shot. One of them had a coffee cup, and I phoned it in.
That's people do that. Right? People do that with everything. If they don't like a movie at that level, then the makers are just greedy, trying to get money, and they hate. Like Rian Johnson hates Star Wars, and he just wants to make money. I was like, you can just not like it.
Like nobody even noticed that in the edit.
What?
That cut for real. Like nobody even noticed that in the edit. Like they couldn't have cleaned that up. Like seriously, who was watching?
There's a lot of shots. There's like thousands of. That's a lot of shots.
Yeah.
And who knows?
It's a lot of editing to do. I mean, they were making it like a movie, but they don't have the same schedule as a movie. It's still kind of a rush job.
Yeah, there's only a couple things happen. I mean, it happened in Mandalorian too, the Blue Jean guy and stuff. It happens sometimes, especially nowadays.
Even for big professional movies like Cats, sometimes leave stuff like that.
The butthole cut.
Like buttholes.
Butthole cut.
Release the tape.
We forgot the buttholes. I would love it if it was the other way around, like it was about to come out, and they're like, "Oh, I knew we were forgetting something."
Buttholes.
Yeah, spend $10 million extra to get that sorted out. We should watch Cats at some point. I think.
Oh, that would be a good reaction. I've tried to watch it with Alex.
Oh, watch along. That might be a good one.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be such a train wreck of a movie.
I've watched it. It's terrible.
My daughter loves musicals, and we started watching that, and I just don't like the songs. Into the first couple songs, she's like, I don't want to watch this anymore. She loves the two things she loves in the world. There's music and cats, like actual cats.
To really appreciate just how bad it is, you've got to watch the actual musical.
I've seen it in person.
The songs are good. They do such a bad job with the songs that they sound bad.
It's a little too Broadway for me.
But there's a theatrical performance movie, right? Like, didn't they release like a recorded performance? So we actually could.
Great. It's one of the ones that I put on when I want singing and dancing in the background, because there's no plot. You don't have to think about anything. It's a movie to watch while you're high. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
That's what. And also I'm saying it's basically just a series of cats singing songs explaining their names.
It's not. This don't think too deeply about it. It's just cats singing, and it's just people in tights. Like this is why the whole let's spend billions of dollars doing CG fur on people just like it feels like
everybody
it's not
out.
Like it's just put them. I mean, just put them on. Fur is a real thing. You don't have to CG that.
I didn't want a world where there were actual like cat-man hybrids running around in the streets singing.
Like you could have saved yourself millions of dollars just by sticking fur on them like they do in Broadway, and everybody would have accepted it because.
Yeah, just make it an outfit or something, because it's like there's a certain point where just premises by themselves might not need further like magnification. It's like, I don't know if this will stand up. It works as a Broadway play because it's like, who cares? It's like abstract.
I think it only works as a play.
Yeah,
we should do a watch along. Yeah. It's something that I put it on when I'm angry and I want to shout at things, and you just got to vent. So I just put it on and I shout at how. Why is that one wearing pants?
That would definitely be good alcohol. By when you're like, well, you have to.
Or on our schedule,
I'm doing this. I'm drinking.
Maybe we should do that. Resurrect the Drunken Dead kind of format.
Because, like, man, I don't know if I can make it through that. It's like 2.5 hours, and it's like pretty long too. I think.
It'll just be me yelling at how badly they're doing the songs.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll do something like that. I do enjoy that. I don't want to poke too much fun at people. If people say something's terrible, I'm like, well, I don't pile on necessarily, but I am fascinated when everybody like universally says no. That's like unbelievably terrible. Like we don't know how they ended up making
Cats right now would be so timely. We're not like 1.5 years behind.
Well, yeah, there's a difference between something. Yeah, we're always searching for nuance when we really crap on things. It's funny to crap on things that are just like, this is just silly. Come on. It's like, this is like, I don't know how this could have worked, but that's,
you guys.
And it sounds like in the stories of that, apparently Tom Hooper, who's he did Shakespeare in Love, which I love that movie. Like it's a real director. He did King's Speech.
He did that Les Miserables, which a lot of people didn't like, but I thought it was pretty good. I liked that concept of recording on set.
He was very authoritarian on set with this thing, and like with the butthole and all those things. He was very demanding. That's why it makes it even funnier that it was like.
That's why about the Les Mis. I think the thing with the Les Mis is that it's a whole different type of musical, and
it is
sort
serious.
Of worked.
Yeah, it is serious
and on set, and they had some very good singers, and they had also Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, yeah. He used to sing in a band too. That's funny.
He does have a band.
Like
I've seen a video of him actually singing that song with Hugh Jackman just at a pub, and they sound great. So whatever they did on set,
it's on set. It'd be hard, especially you don't have a microphone.
They didn't have someone timing it out for them. They were on set. They were singing all day. It was bad. Like they did a lot of bad things.
That's a shame.
And the fact that it came out as good as it did, like especially the second half is a lot better, I think, than the first half. When you get the Marius and I
enjoyed the movie.
They're very good under all those conditions. So some of it works very, very well. And then they took that and they said, well, we can do that again for Cats, which is a very different type of musical.
I just think it's a flawed premise, the whole idea of the Cats.
I think they should have done, but they should have gone grim and dark like they did with Les Miserables. Like this is a dystopian world.
Like very beautiful cinematic like that. Yeah.
Like just go Zack Snyder with it.
Yeah, that'd be good. It's all
sepia tone. It's funny to see like with the Snyder Cut, like you see some of these people wanted to re-litigate like the other Snyder movies. Like I saw something that came out where it's like BVS is misunderstood. It's like, no, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah, hold on.
Like we're not re-litigating BVS.
Yeah.
All right.
Nobody agrees with that.
I would challenge you to do this. If you're, however you feel either way about these movies, I want you to just watch Man of Steel. Then I want you to watch the R-rated ultimate cut of BVS, and then I want you to watch the 4-hour R-rated Justice League Snyder cut, and you tell me that those 3 movies go together at all as a creative vision. Like I'm fine with Snyder cut. I'm glad he got to do his thing. I enjoyed it, but there is no way you can say that is a narrative thread between those 3 movies. They are all completely different. Like there's some similarities in elements that they use, but there's no story thread that makes sense across all 3 of those movies.
Yeah, now I'm getting down
as a creative vision.
As all those same guys, these same like YouTubers, they get so pissed. Like, hold on, I'm not gonna go on a rant. This is just real quick. I just made a parallel thinking about those guys. They can be so pissed that Luke Skywalker is a little negative after 40 years of failure. and they can't, but they're okay with Superman being the most grumpiest person in the world. I was like, that's not even close. Superman, by his nature, that character is supposed to be what he is. Luke Skywalker's just a kid who was pretty nice early on. Yeah. And then he got a little emo. Actually, it tracks.
Yeah, he was a bit grumpy.
He was heading towards emo. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he ended his emo.
Pretty dark in Return of the Jedi.
He was kind of just whiny. Yeah. Like, he had it in him all the time to be that sort of, I'm going to take my ball and go home.
We think it's outrageous that Luke Skywalker be a little bit realistic, but the biggest Boy Scout in the world, it's like, yeah, he's fine to be totally depressed and hate being Superman and only love Lois and hate humanity. It's fine. That makes sense. Anyway, I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just
there is there, but that would be a weird.
Hello, puppy.
Because that is the primary issue they have with Last Jedi. In fact, there's a lot of women in it too. I guess that's their other issue. Although Greg's been slowly every now and then he'll just say Last Jedi is pretty good, and then he's like, "You guys are actually right. I think it's pretty good." I'm like, "Who are you talking to? We weren't trying to convince."
Yeah.
He's slowly coming around there. Because it ages well. I think it ages way better than
I would say,
stuff.
too, even with a BVS or whatever, if you're really that concerned about it, just give it time and go back to it. That's why I don't think there's room to relitigate BVS because
we've done it 1,000 times.
Well, there's just no perspective. Like, we broke that movie down in every way we can. Like, if you like that movie, then it's fine. You like it. And if you like me and you don't like it, I can appreciate some of the things I did in it, but I'm not going to have a come to Jesus on that movie where I realize it's pretty good. It's like,
and if you don't like it,
definitely not my movie.
Don't watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that we got this version of the Snyder Cut that he feels like he's gotten done what he wanted to do, and he can move on and do whatever. And the DC universe seems to be moving on as well. Everybody should be happy. I don't know if whatever that contingent is that's still mad, wanting to do more with Zack Snyder. It's like, look, you got what you got, and that's more than most people.
Whenever you watch those things, they're always like, these Zack Snyder haters. I'm like, oh, hold on. I mean, I know we criticize and go against them, but there's no big stream of people. Like, what happened was the movie just didn't get made, and we've moved on. And you guys have been wanting it to get made, but I don't think you've been. Like, Warner Brothers has been y'all's enemy. Nobody's been saying that.
I don't even think
it's like
I still
nobody's their enemy. There's no enemy here. It's just like
this whole release the Snyder Cut thing seems more and more to me like a marketing stunt. I saw a commercial for Vero, and they were like, you would think that they freed the American people, because they were like, a year ago, we all got together, we had an idea, and we changed the world. And it's showing all these clips of Zack Snyder's guy, like, we did that here on Vero. And, Vero is just the social media platform that he uses. Yeah. And that sort of is where this release the Snyder Cut thing, and like, well, hold on now. I've been saying this is a marketing push, but now they're bringing it back as it's now a marketing tool they're using for this platform. Now I'm starting to think, if we start to research, are we going to find out that Warner Brothers owns Vero? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah.
Because they're not against you. I really think that element of fandom played directly into Warner Brothers' deal, because they're more than happy to have a Snyder Cut out there on HBO Max.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm glad they got it and all that stuff, and I'm glad they raised the money or whatever, because it is not bad. I like seeing it. It was cool to see it, and people actually. Did we say this last time? One of the cool benefits, they said, like, a lot of post-production houses like survived this year because that $70 million basically just went into special effects to these places that haven't.
Yeah, a huge amount of industry.
Cool thing.
Where a lot of people don't have jobs. That's good stuff, right there.
Well, that is true. I also don't think
never paid properly or anything anyway. So
yeah, I also while all this is true, positive. So I'm glad it happened. I don't want to take it away. I also personally don't feel a movie or something you disagree with in a movie is worth protesting and activism in this way. Like, it just seems
especially
like there's so
not
many
this kind of movie. It's just
like,
Superman. Like, I could understand it if it was like.
I think
she said it's just Superman, and I'd cut her
holy
off.
Cancel culture.
Yeah,
they got canceled, Lynn.
No, I'm back. My bad. I was talking about Superman, and I'm a girl.
Yeah. You really, literally, you just said it's just Superman. Bloop.
Yeah,
just cut off. I didn't do that.
Well,
straight on.
I can understand it if it was about something culturally significant, like if it was about the Holocaust or something like that, and they were just
it was a real life thing.
really
Yeah,
bad.
absolutely.
And it was actually affecting the way people thought about it in culture and having a negative cultural effect. Like if it was a really racist movie and it made people attack people or something like that, I could understand having a big.
Or it's like if you wanted to make like a show on HBO about slavery still existing or something.
But it's just Superman.
Those guys, they must have been on crack at the end. Sorry, I don't mean
to.
But yeah, if it's something
it's
realistic,
probably the best thing for their career that the last season went. Because if the final season had been like a home run, those guys would have just gone into the stratosphere with bonkers decisions.
But see, that would have been a show worth protesting because I don't know if that's in great taste. That's
a terrible idea for a show.
Yeah, because it's real life stuff that you're mixing with. It's like, where's the? Yeah, I just in general, these are movies, guys. Get over it. This isn't made. This is made for. I just feel like the way I have a voice is I don't have to pay for it. I don't have to buy a ticket, and I don't have to go.
I was going to say, walk outside and do something else, but you know,
or I can pay for something else.
That's probably what the problem is, that people haven't been able to go outside and do something else.
Well, I want to generalize, but I'm going to assume that there's at least a portion of that angry contingent that wasn't going outside a whole lot.
Well, and this comes from
pandemic.
Me and us, all of us. I'm passionate about this stuff. I would talk to you 8 hours a day about this stuff. I'm passionate about superheroes and media and all these things, but also it is just a movie too. It can be both of those things. It's like, just wait for the next movie, or go write your own movie, or get into the industry and do what you want to do. Like,
I don't understand. They're raping my childhood.
Like, it doesn't belong to you. You can choose not to participate in it, I think. And you can own your interpretation of it, but demanding other content is weird to me. Like, it's
we've been on every side of that, because like with the BVS thing, we have that go-to example that we can say, like, we had the one that we couldn't stand as a movie, and then we had to deal with that, and then we have like a Last Jedi where we were on the other side, and we're like, we had the one that we thought was great, and other people couldn't stand it. So just know that sometimes you're on one side of that, sometimes you're on the other, but it's the way you respond that counts in terms of that.
Sometimes you eat the bar, sometimes
the bar eats you.
Yeah, it's just but it's even funny from that side of it. Yeah, I get it. We've been there before.
I think those experiences are good for us, because the last few years have been so good at producing so much entertainment that we've loved, but the last few years have always had like a weird curveball too. Well, like some of the big ones are like, whoa, like, so it's really primed. Well, if you haven't before as a fan had a chance, like, well, I guess this stuff's just going to come and go sometimes.
Well, yeah, and it's dangerous though, because the Justice League thing is a very specific situation, because it was already made. Like, it was already shot and like conceived of, and like, this is what we're going to be. And it just hadn't been polished and finished yet. And so there's not like a lot of room. My thing is, I think that encourages bad tendencies, which we can see from the stuff that he added, like the nightmares, like, hold on. So that's which encourages stuff like Rise of Skywalker, which, smart as J.J. Abrams is, he's spooked as hell by all this stuff from the Star Wars backlash, from even the first one to this one. There's no way he's not spooked by those, making what he made. Because it's like, it's a pretty kind of weird trying to please everybody, and nobody liked it. I just don't want to have bad stuff.
Star Wars right now. I can't imagine the pressure. Yeah. I can't imagine the hate that you're going to get from all sides.
I'm not blaming him. I get it. I totally.
And there's no fun. Yeah, like, they seem to be having fun making The Mandalorian, and they seem to be not getting that kind of fan backlash.
We'll see now, because they fired.
But
Gina
because of the Civil War at Lucasfilm.
Yeah, because all this stuff. I'm like, guys, come on.
It's men versus women over there.
I can have different opinions about what people say or not. Here's the thing.
Do it.
I'm not even going to get into that. This is one thing. I don't want to get political, but the one thing else, this is staying out politically out of it. I still have no sympathy for you if you have one of the best jobs in the world, and they say, hey, can you not do this? And then you walk away and go, I think I'm good. You have one job, it's just to not tweet. I do it every day. It's easy. And I don't even have a job. I'm not starting.
Just turn off your Twitter while you're doing this job. You can tweet rude stuff again.
Wait a few months. And that's it.
And I'm real sympathetic to that. Like, you don't want to lose your whole job and your whole future over stuff like that. But at the same time, if you're working your job and they say you represent a very important, high-profile brand, and we expect you not to behave in this such a way if you are part of that brand, and you're like, I'm going to do what I want. It's like, well, that's your right.
Yeah,
but don't say your rights are taken away.
It's not getting into any like right or wrong thing. I mean, I don't agree with her, but that's not even. You can agree with her or not agree with her. To me,
I don't think people should be calling for her to get fired either. I don't think if someone in a show says something you don't like, I don't think you should start a petition to get them fired and lose their livelihood for it.
Yeah, out of context, the whole thing. Even the final straw was said, I don't think it's like, well, she's just whining. I don't know if that was that crazy, but it wasn't about that. What the previous situation was, it's if this happens to any of us, we have bosses. They go, hey man, you're going to this thing. We talked about this. You're going to a conference. Don't embarrass this or don't do this certain thing there. You're like, well, you do pay me and I do work for you. I'm not making an independent thing on my own.
This is America.
As long as you work for somebody, they can ask you not, especially if it's like a thing that's not necessary. Like it's a public forum that's not necessary for you to enter into.
Well, and especially if you're representing $1 billion brand.
They didn't go and say you need to say this or you need to be pro whatever. That's a different issue, and I'd be totally understanding. They just said, "Hey, how about not tweet stuff about Nazis?"
And it's crazy that people are saying it's only because of these days, and it's only because of cancel culture these days. When this sort of thing has been happening to people in the public eye forever, like how people have been cancelled, like Disney starlet kids have been cancelled for doing nude shoots and that sort of thing. Like Jessica Biel got kicked out of Seventh Heaven because she was getting too racy off screen
by a pedophile. She got fired by a child molester.
Yeah, so it's not a new concept.
Yeah, and that's why it's weird that that whole political persuasion gets, again, not to get too political, but to get that we complain about it because that's just capitalism, baby. That's like, this is your company.
It's not a new thing that's just happening now. Like cancel culture isn't a new thing. This is just consequences of actions, and it has been a thing forever.
And yeah, it goes into just companies do whatever's the easiest. They made a decision to go with this the Justice League thing because they're like, well, it's not that hard for us to just get some effects people to come in here, right? Because he also had the cut done. He had a cut already made of it.
Yeah, and we've got nothing else to bring out this year. We've got nothing else to do this year. We might as well do something that's going to bring us money and going to bring us attention.
But when you ask them, like, how about you do this and get them involved, like, we're not going to do the whole thing of that. They're like, we're not wading into that at all.
Well, right now, like we were saying, there's like a release the air cut of Suicide Squad. There's a little bit, and they're like, no, we got a new Suicide Squad coming that would work against our interests.
That looks amazing.
Yeah,
I love that trailer.
It's going to be really good. We don't have any hope of resurrecting the Justice League franchise anytime soon, so we can do whatever we want with it.
It's like, they're not going to do. This is still, it's like, it's weird when people fall on different sides of stuff. It's like where they're trying to be they get mad when it's kind of be like, well, they're trying to make money. I was like, that's what they're all going to do is make money. What you hope to find is creators that know how to balance that art and commerce, like a Kevin Feige. He knows what people are going to get into and like about the thing, and then go, well.
What did you really think that these big movie companies are out here for? The art?
Yeah,
they bought
Marvel money
for like what, $4 billion.
Well, that's why they always they
needed to recoup that investment, and they bought Star Wars for $4 billion. Or I can't remember. Marvel might have been a little bit more.
I think Marvel was $2 billion. I think it was cheaper actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Either way, it was billions that they spent on those. So they're going to have a certain say in how it's produced. Like we said, there's not going to be a runaway auteur of those kind of movies.
Well, but that's when
it's a big corporate product.
Right. And with Lucasfilm, they always get mad at Kathleen Kennedy. I was like, she's the CEO. I mean, I know why they get mad at her because, but like,
that's
different. But I was like, who's the guy, the Marvel guy is like that weird guy. I don't even remember his name. Nobody talked about him. I was like, he's the CEO. The CEOs have nothing to do. They are.
Yeah. Who's like, is it Bob Iger?
They're just running a business.
Not of Marvel though. Marvel has a different CEO.
Oh, you're talking about Ike Perlmutter was.
But it was something else too. I was like, that guy is crazy. Or it was like nobody liked him, but Kevin Feige was. They don't have that position. Like, why are you blaming it on her? Like, she doesn't like Star Wars enough. She's like, she doesn't have to. She's a CEO. She doesn't have to care about any of this.
She doesn't have to like the thing. She has to know that it makes her money, and she has to know how to treat the property to make money.
Right. That's all. Hire the right people, and it's like that's what they've done.
Free talk. I'm all about whatever we can crank out as content is good. We need to keep putting it out there. We are still picking up subs here and there. Got to give them something.
Hit us on my alts.
Smash them likes.
Mm-hmm.
Smash that like button.
Yeah.
Subscribe. Ring the bell.
Smash the bell.